So I'm reading a little bit from the Earl's Egyptian Heiress, which debuted last year, actually, and it was my debut. So I thought I'd read from it today.
Yay, I'm excited.
Thank you.
Is
I'm
there anything
excited.
we need to know about the scene?
So this scene happens around, so Ranya, who's the Egyptian female main character, POV, she's gone to England to find some things out with the Earl of Warrington. And, she's left Egypt and she lands in England. And this is a dinner party. She's thrown into a dinner party. So this is a dinner party scene. And this is her reaction to this scene. And Owen is the main POV, and she knows him as half Egyptian, half British. And so she's seen him in Egypt. She knows what he's like in Egypt, but here he's the Earl of Warrington, and he's very much in his earlness, so to speak. And so this is the dinner party scene.
Awesome. Take it
Okay,
away.
thank you. Rania gritted her teeth through the conversation that followed around British relations with India. Did these people truly believe they were better than everyone else in the world? Maybe they thought they were doing good, buying spices from India or cotton from Egypt, while offering language and education in places like Mr. March's school or through their missionary work. Yet, for all their airs, they did not realize how much they depended on the labor of those they termed barbaric, or that their assumptions about people who were not like them might be completely wrong. Rania wished she could call them out on their prejudice, but being a guest at their supper party stilled her tongue. Until the main course came in, a roasted pig. The skin was crispy and there was an apple in its mouth. How would people ever eat it, looking like that? She clapped both hands over her mouth to stop herself being sick, then pushed her chair back, knocking cutlery to the ground. It was like the first day on the yacht with Owen before Rania had gotten her sea legs. Except they weren't alone, so he could hold her hand, stand at her back as an anchor, solid, warm. Apologies. Pig is forbidden in my faith, she managed to mumble after she'd calmed a bit. I am not accustomed to seeing it like this. Lady Elizabeth sneered. I had forgotten Mohammedans do not consume pork, and yet they don't have a problem with camel meat. The other woman's prejudice was too much for Ranya. She stood abruptly, backing away from the pig, refusing to look at it again. The men stood too, out of decorum, but it was Owen who rounded the table. I'm sorry, I should have seen to the menu myself. He stared pointedly at the Countess. Excuse my ignorance, Miss Radwan, she offered. Pardon it this time, and it shall not happen again for the duration of your stay. Please, Owen addressed one of the servants, pass a message along to the kitchens not to serve any pork. Only lamb, chicken, or duck. Yes, my lord. Also, please remove the platter to a side table and slice the pork there. You may serve it to our guests banquet fashion, as in luncheon. The countess made an objecting sound, but said nothing as the servant complied. And in the bustle of the changes being made to the table, Owen led Ranya to a quiet corner of the dining room. I'm sorry, all this, a supper party, the customs, it would be overwhelming even if the guests weren't so rude and ignorant. His kindness made her tearful, and she had to bite her lip to stop the flood of emotion. She wished she could tell him that she had no problem with him, that in fact she wished they were alone, even though she shouldn't. Behind his back, Rania caught a glimpse of Miss Charlotte, frowning, fretful. Then the dining room stilled, conversation ceased, and all stood over their filled plates, whether they were waiting for the head of the table to return or trying to overhear what he was saying to her, she could not be sure. When the Countess called his name and Owen ignored her, his attention still completely on Ranya, she'd have been lying if she tried to deny how powerful she felt, how much it boosted her. They're waiting for you, she said softly. Maybe I should excuse myself. It's important to me that you feel welcome here, but if you would like to go, you may, certainly. Molly will bring you a tray. She met his gaze. But you would rather I stayed? Most ardently, he nodded and bit down lightly on his lower lip. Rania didn't know what daring possessed her when she saw that. Sit me next to you then. He nodded before turning, and then moved to place a hand on Sir Henry's shoulder. Would you mind exchanging your place with Miss Radwan? I think it prudent to have her near me. She would have liked him to move Miss Charlotte instead, but it was fine. It was still a victory, being next to him and having him refuse to eat any of the main dish with her, pushing away the wine when he realized that it was something she wasn't drinking. Having the Earl of Warrington pay her such exquisite attention made Ranya feel as if she were flying, as if she couldn't be hurt or shamed by anyone else at that table. But that didn't mean that there weren't moments when she felt as if her wings had been clipped and she was falling, quickly, spinning, giddy. When his knee scraped against hers under the tablecloth, or the tip of his shoe nudged the tip of hers, the intimacy and the benign act of bringing his fork close to her plate to recommend or comment on the food. Try the Brussels sprouts dipped in the mustard dressing. Or, doesn't the blanc mange remind you of mahalabeya pudding, but with vanilla instead of blossom powder? With the contortions of the candlelight, it was like seeing him anew, this version of Iskandar that was Owen in front of others. It made her heart pound with the danger of it. And even though others tried to get their attention throughout the meal, it was hard to do. Sir Henry tried twice to ask if she knew the place where the Rosetta Stone was found. Yes, very well. The fort is central in the town named for it. We call it Rashid. The French like to claim they found it, he said. But an old army friend of mine, whose father was with Admiral Nelson when he fought Napoleon's forces in Egypt, claimed one of his savants was led to it by a local peasant girl he had fallen madly in love with. He's right, Ranya agreed. According to local legend, she was more than just the Falaha. She was the siren jinn of the Nile and Nadaha, who, with her beauty and song, could lure men to a watery death. It is said that the Nadaha would sometimes use her voice to possess a human body, and as far back as any can remember, she'd use the women of a particular family as vessels for her immortality. Maybe she fell in love with that savant of Napoleon's, or maybe they drowned together. Neither was ever heard from again. Fascinating. Sir Henry practically clapped while his wife mumbled something that sounded like hogwash to their daughter. Ranya dismissed it as a reference to the meal they had eaten. As for Owen, he only exhaled, loud and deep, a breath she felt in her own chest.